The focus of this morning's session is going to be on LinkedIn and sort of giving you a quick refresh to your LinkedIn profile, small things that you can do to make sure that your profile is working on your behalf, to communicate your value to different employers, to make sure that people are seeing the value that you bring as you are either on internship search or job search or just networking in general. For those of you who have LinkedIn profiles, the key thing to remember is that this is your first impression that you're making. You really should have a photo. You get more profile views with a photo. If you don't, that gray, squeegee looking thing on the left is not a good impression. I did find this person's photo upside down, which is obviously very hard to do, but something you definitely want to avoid if you're working on your profile. So I'm going to run through things not to do, or suggestions that we have of things not to do, and then things that you can do more effectively. All of these photos are fairly professional photos, but they're all looking away from the person who's looking at you. And so they feel somewhat distant and not connecting to the person. And we always suggest having sort of more direct visual contact. These photos suffer from sort of light issues. Some are too bright, some are too dark. These are some things that obviously you can fix as you're working on your photo. Please try not to have a photo that you've cut out of another photo, leaving someone's arm or someone's child or someone's body part next to you. It's very confusing. You really want a photo that's just about you, that hasn't been cropped out of anything that you're working on. And if you have a group photo, obviously it's hard to know which one of you is the person whose profile it is, like the one on the bottom right here. I'm an animal behaviorist, so I do like animals. The one with the dolphin I think is not too bad because I do like dolphins too, but ideally you don't have other things apart from you. You don't want extra body parts, nor do you want to miss body parts. These ones that are on the top here feel like they're missing parts of the body, which is a little bit distracting. The backgrounds on the next line are somewhat distracting too, especially the zebra one. It's sort of drawing your attention away from that. And then in certain cases, try not to have an action, right? You don't want to be eating, or you don't even necessarily want to be presenting, at a scientific conference or doing research, because that's who you are right now, but that may not be who you want to be in the future in terms of your next professional step. So do make sure that you are thinking about the role you want, not necessarily what you are right now, because you want a photo that sort of represents what that future role is going to look like, to help people imagine you in that future role. Then these are ideal photos that you can sort of be thinking about in terms of how you want to present yourself, right? These are all very professionally sort of set up in terms of the lighting, in terms of how the person fills the space. They're all very positive. There's smiling, there's eye contact. And although it looks like these are really professional photos, I guarantee you can do this with your phone with about 150 tries of taking a photo. And, with a bit of blurred background and a nice bit of scenery in the background, you can really make this a good photo. So these are the types of things that you want to be focusing on. So your photo is your first impression. Obviously, people also need to know your name, and they need to know how to get your name right and say it correctly. And some people have a hard time, me included, getting the names right, and we come up with our own pronunciations. But it's really helpful if you can sort of provide direction about how your name should be said, because that makes the connection that you're making with people much more solid. And one of the things that LinkedIn has added recently, and this only works on the app right now, so you just need to put the app on your phone, is that you can record your own pronunciation, right? So you go into the app and you edit your settings, and you can record your name so that when people look at your profile, even on the desktop, they can hear your name, right? And this is great because if I have an appointment with a student or if I'm interviewing a candidate, I'm likely to look at their LinkedIn profile. And if I can hear them say their name, then I'm going to feel much more confident and comfortable as I'm meeting that person for the first time. So that's going to make me feel good. It's going to make you feel good that I get your name right. And it's going to be a really great way to start off that connection with a professional. So do take the opportunity to do that. And then if you've done that, when you look at your LinkedIn profile, you'll see that the speaker icon will be there. And as people click on that, they'll hear you say your name. So I recommend everyone do it. It's just a really great way of making sure that people know who you are and how your name should be said. The next thing to focus on for LinkedIn is going to be your URL. This is the thing that you can share with people to take you to your profile. So mine here is Joseph Barber, PhD. I probably would have taken Joseph Barber by itself, but that was already taken. So I added the PhD. But it's also important because the PhD has been very valuable to me as I've been, in the different roles that I've had. So including that in my URL is sort of part of my identity. What you want to avoid is what LinkedIn does automatically, which is to assign your name with a random string of numbers and letters, which mean nothing and, sounds weird and gets in the way and doesn't look very professional. So eliminating these is really great. You may not get your name exactly because depending on how many people share your name, but you can usually find a way to sort of make it unique and specific to you. So as you go into your settings, you want to go to edit your custom URL, and you can see here you'll have options, and it will tell you if that URL is already taken. You might want to play around with that. And you can change it multiple times. I don't think there's a limit in terms of what that looks like there. So it's a very small part of your professional brand, but it's also, I think important to sort of have a very clear set of distinguishing features about you that people can recognize, and the URL is just a part of that. So the photo is who you are. The name is is an identifier. The who you are is sort of the flavor, what you want people to know about you as they sort of think about the type of professional that you are. And so the headline in LinkedIn is one way to sort of focus on this. And so this was the one that I had as I was working on this presentation, and then I decided I was bored with that one and I changed it. But the reason I chose engaging as a word is because that's feedback that I've received when I do my adjunct professor teaching up at Hunter College. I get a lot of student feedback that says it was very engaging, so I borrowed that word. Future focus is what I want people to know that I am, that I have a vision for the future. And then I just included my name and the office, Senior Associate Director, Career Services. And that's the thing I decided to change because I felt like it didn't really represent what I would bring to a role. It's just the role that I'm in. So let's walk through a couple of versions of what sort of not to do to a certain extent. That includes the not putting what you want in the headline, right? So these are all people who are looking for jobs. And that sort of describes the process that you're in, but it doesn't describe what you bring to that role. And so it's possibly less appealing to someone looking at this to know that you are wanting something, and I think more appealing to know what it is that you would bring to a role. So I would try to avoid this sort of looking for work because it doesn't really describe you. Here are some general ones that I stole from Penn students and postdocs. I just went through and I took a sort of selection. And you can see that the challenge here is that many of these feel very general, right? Especially the last one. What are you? I'm a graduate student. It doesn't even say what you're a graduate student in or your degree or your institution or anything about that. And so, there are many, many, many graduate students in the world. And so just saying that you're a graduate student isn't really going to be a distinguishing factor that makes someone excited about getting to know you more. So I think it's very important to sort of think about different ways to present yourself. And so these are, again, are headlines that I took from actual student profiles that I feel are much more engaging in terms of, what they say to the person who's reading the profile. So, sometimes these are just descriptions of the field that you're in. And people worry, I think, about saying that they are, for example, a scientist or a PhD researcher working on this. Do you get to call yourself a scientist if your role is not scientist, if you don't have a job that says scientist? And I think the answer is yes, right? If you've been working on data science project, you can be a data scientist. If you're working on biomedical products, you can work on biomedical engineering, right? So there's always lots of words that you can use that are actually accurate. These don't represent job titles necessarily. They are versions of you that you're really trying to communicate to the people out there. So, some of these are very specific to someone. I'm a restless innovator and research mentor. I'm a student curious about the intersection of technology and people. The key here, obviously, is to make sure that you don't make up things just because they sound cool, but they are part of who you are. So I would reach out to people that and I would ask them, how do you see me? How would you describe me if you had to, describe me in 5 words? And sort of use that as a way to imagine different varieties of your identity and your narrative. Because sometimes it's hard for you to imagine those things, but you might ask your peers and they all may come up with a very similar set of descriptors about you. And I think you can borrow from that very heavily because that's how other people see you. So that's a good thing to do. Matching your headline to what you say in the rest of the profile is going to be important. Obviously, you don't want to say something in the headline, but have no connection with things that you're saying further down. So in terms of editing that, you just go to your profile on the website and you update it, and you can see the headline here. You don't have a lot of, I didn't see a space restriction in terms of that, but you don't want it to be a long paragraph. You certainly want to be thoughtful about that. And you can obviously change it. I decided that I had my last one for several years and it was time for a change. And so that's what I did. So as part of this presentation, I tweaked a little bit of my profile. I kept my photo the same. I decided I'm still youthful enough to use that photo. I haven't changed too much. But I stuck with the engaging, and then I moved to describing a little bit more about what it is that I do as opposed to what I am. So communicator and creative leader with interdisciplinary expertise in creative element and animal behavior. 2 things that don't often go together. So putting them together makes perhaps an interesting perspective for someone who might be reading to say, what on earth does that mean? I also changed the background, so you have that banner behind your head, and so the blue dots are perfectly professional, but there was a book I worked on chickens, which was my PhD research. So I decided to put that in the background. I feel like it makes a nice match there. So saying, I did then ask my wife to take a look at my profile and see what she thought, and she pulled it up on her iPad, and it turned out on the iPad, my head is stuck right there in the chicken's butt. And then I was, took a long time to wonder if I actually wanted that to be what people would see. And I still haven't quite decided if I need to change that or change the orientation of something. It's not quite a disaster, but just a reminder that different devices work differently. And if you didn't want to be in a chicken's butt, then you would want to address that. The main part of the introduction to your LinkedIn profile is going to be your summary, right? So we've covered different things here. We have the photo, we have the headline. So that's your name. That's what people should, how they can communicate with you. Your takeaways, which, as I said before, are sort of like your flavor. What flavor of person are you doing there in terms of your professional identity? And then the about part, which I sort of framed as the summary, is going to be the part that is probably the hardest to write and the hardest to put together, because it's a moving target, right? You're not speaking just to one type of audience. You may be speaking to a broad audience. Your LinkedIn profile is very different from a resume where you're applying for a specific role at a specific company. This is open to everyone seeing you. And so you want to be someone who can be exciting to a variety of people. Now, probably the best way to think about the about section is that it should help the reader make sense of your experience, right? If you didn't have the about section, then you go straight from this introductory part into your experience where you have all your different roles and responsibilities. And, if that's a diverse set of experiences, it's hard for people to piece you back together again when they see you sort of split apart in these different roles. And so, I'm a career advisor right now. I've been a journal editor. I've worked in Disney's Animal Kingdom. There's all sorts of weird things in my background. And if people look at that, then they may find it hard to go, well, I don't really understand you. I don't understand what puts you together. And so what I've tried to do in my about section is to find the commonalities between those experiences, talk about things that I think, I bring to every role, but also just to make sure that people know that this diverse background is just a part of who I am. In terms of best practices for the sort of the about or the summary statement, I'd always suggest writing it in the first person. So I am this, I am that. When people write in the third person, so if I were to say, Joseph Barber is a career advisor at Career Services, or whatever, I might say, when I read those statements, I always ask myself, who's the narrator, right? Who's saying this about Joseph Barber if Joseph Barber's not saying this about himself? And then I get into this metaphysical, philosophical, existential challenge of trying to figure out who's talking. So, that's my issue, but I think the direct statement is what you would say to someone if you were just introducing yourself to them in person. And that's what you're trying to mimic here. You really want to decide what your conclusions are right from the beginning, right? What do you want people to know about you? And then write the sort of the about statement to reflect that. If you don't quite know who you're meant to be or what you want people to walk away with, you're going to have a hard time writing this statement, and the reader will have a hard time figuring out what you are. So really spend some time reflecting on what are those takeaways from your perspective. If at the end of look at your LinkedIn profile, people could remember 3 things about you, what would you want those 3 things to be? And then obviously make it sound like you. Don't be sort of a robot. Don't try to make it too formal. This is not a sort of a formal official cover letter. This is a much more casual yet professional way of communicating about yourself. So it's okay to bring a little bit of your personality into that, because that's how you want people to know you anyway. You want people to know you for you. Just don't make that get in the way of your professional skills and experiences that you're hoping to bring as well. As I mentioned, there may be multiple audiences that you're trying to communicate with, and so make sure that what you say is broad enough so you're not pigeonholed into just one type of role in the future. If you have a preferred audience, you want a job in a certain field, then make sure your about statement is prioritized to that audience. And then we're always happy to give you feedback at Career Services if you have questions about your summary statements. If you want to draft it and come to see us, we'll give you our thoughts on what that looks like. A few resources that we can mention today. I did an extended version of a LinkedIn webinar for the Penn Alumni Relations, and so you can certainly watch through that webinar if you wanted to. As Penn students and postdocs, you have access to LinkedIn Learning, which is a series of educational videos and resources on LinkedIn. Obviously, LinkedIn has resources on how to make a good LinkedIn profile, so I recommend taking a look at some of those as well. We have a tool on our website called Targeted Resume, which, as the name suggests, is mainly about giving you feedback on your resume. But they do have a section in this tool that allows you to do a quick review of your LinkedIn profile. So you download your profile as a PDF, you throw it into the thing, and it will scan it and sort of give you feedback on how your different sections come together. So pretty happy with my 90 score here. This is just a snapshot review of your LinkedIn profile, you want to come to see us at Career Services, and we'll be happy to give you some general pointers on your LinkedIn profile. But this is a nice way of just getting some general overviews of LinkedIn and seeing what your profile looks like.